He wants the split again. Here it comes. Swing and a miss. He got him. And the Phillies have won their first series since the end of April as Hector Neris throws a 1-2-3 top of the ninth inning. And they take 2 of 3 from the Giants.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back once again to the Drive Podcast. This is the 18th episode of the podcast. As always, Jared Paolo, along with my co-host, Kyle Fry. And today we have a little bit of a special edition podcast, do we, Kyle?
It is the let's look at the future instead of the present because the present sucks episode.
Yeah, so today we have our prospect episode. We did a semi-prospect episode about a month ago, I believe.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah, we did. It wasn't like a full-blown prospect episode like we are going to be doing today. It was kind of just like a Phillies prospect to go along with maybe a few prospects of like the Flyers. But today it's going to be pretty much full-blown prospects across the board. Flyers, Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers. So, yeah, it's really, let's hop right into it. We'll let Kyle talk about his beloved Flyers, and a little bit about Nolan Patrick and Nico Hischier.
Yeah, I think the last time that we did this was where the Flyers won the draft lottery. You got the second overall pick, so yeah. I don't think any type of breaking news like that's going to happen during this, but
you never know.
Maybe AMAC will get traded during this episode.
Yeah, that'd be best case scenario. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I would just shut it down and just be like, nope, gotta go party now. Gonna go get drunk as all hell. AMAC's finally gone.
Yeah.
But as Jared said, obviously the main thing with Flyers prospects is Nolan Patrick versus Nico Hischier. I'm not going to talk too much about it just because we've talked about it so much before, and it's the same things over and over again.
It's really a win-win situation with it.
Yeah, so. Like, who cares who we get, honestly? Like, I have my preference, and that's Nolan Patrick. I've said that before, but it's not like we're getting a scrub in Hischier. Like, it's a two main prospect draft, and that's what, like, good thing we have the top 2 pick then.
Yeah.
So, the main things with Patrick, again, like, he uses his size extremely well. He's not exactly as fast as Hischier because I don't think anyone in this draft is.
No.
Hischier is just an incredible skater. There's a video, I don't necessarily agree with the comparison, but someone compared him to Pavel Bure, and I'm like, okay, but a little bit too far, but I get it. He's that fast. I don't think he's
he is very
as skilled as Bure, but
yeah. Like, and even in the goal that he scored for Switzerland against the U.S. back in the World Juniors, like, he skated, like, you saw how fast he pretty much skated through the whole defense just because of his speed. Obviously,
he does it, like, all the time. Like, he'll just...
Oh, yeah.
As soon as he gets going, there's almost no stopping him, and the only thing that really can hold him back is the fact that he's not as big as a guy like Patrick, and that's one of the things that Patrick has over him is just the fact that he mixes in good skating with his size, and his reach is so good. Like, there's a clip that I love watching. I think he just goes, like, around the net, shoots it low, gets the rebound, and then, like, because of his reach, he can just reach around the goalie and put it in. And I love that with centers just because it's such a threat down low then. Like, if you put him behind the net, it's going to be so hard to stop him coming around the net. That's why Jeff Carter was so good when he was here and why he still is today. Like, he has that long reach, and it works for him so well. He has such a good shot. Slappers, wristers, seems to be very accurate. It's a hard shot. He can take one-timers, so assuming the Flyers draft him, I would assume he would go where Drew is on the second power play unit. He would basically take that spot and be the one-timer guy. Who knows if that's how they're going to position it, if Patrick makes a team for one, and if they draft him. But I can definitely see that happening. He's pretty good defensively. He's played PK and on the power play with Brandon Weekings in the WHL. He's a good all-around player. There's nothing really to not like about him. The only thing that I would really say is his skating isn't exactly fantastic, but that's only in comparison to Heischer. Like, it's good when you compare it to every single other prospect, so.
Yeah, and you know, obviously the injury thing is there too.
Yeah, obviously.
He's gotten injured a decent bit. He only played, I believe, a half, if that, last season of his season.
Yeah, it was. I'm pretty sure it was less than half. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know, there's always that aspect, but still, it's one of those things where if he's there at 2, and if the Devils take Heischer and he's there at 2, he's just too good of a talent to pass up on. It's one of those cases, really.
There's no way you pass up on either one of them. No. Like, no matter what, it's those two guys, and that's why I'm not even going to talk about the guys that are there afterwards, like Owen Tippett, Liljegren. There's another Swedish or Finnish defenseman who is projected. Yeah, here, let me just pull it up. I've done like so much scouting just based off of Jeff Merrick's top 100 prospect list. Miro Heiskanen, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's a defenseman. He's third on his board. And then it's Owen Tippett. Cody Glass is there. Gabriel Velarde is a guy I've heard a lot about. But there's just no point in bringing them up because there's just... It's Patrick or Heischer. There's no way unless some crazy injury happens before the draft or some crazy story comes out. Like, it's those two. That's it.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, the skill gap is... See, the thing with the NHL is, like, there always seems to be, like, those one or two guys that pretty much have, like, that skill gap, whereas... See, that's one of the things that I do like about the NHL draft, is there's always, like, there's always seems to be, you know, like, givens as to who's going to go up top, whereas in other drafts, you have to, you know, guess and whatnot. It's just... I mean, it does take away from the... I wouldn't say randomness aspect, but, you know, it does play into a part, whereas if, you know, it's like, okay, if you are a top, you know, 2 or 3 pick or wherever you're at, you know that you have a select player pool to pick from pretty much, so it always helps.
Definitely. Yeah, like, compared to the MLB draft, where it's like, there's never a consensus number 1 pick unless it's a Bryce Harper, a Steven Strasburg. Like, those are the only really 2 times in the past few years where it's been like, yeah, he's definitely going to go number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah,
last
like
year with the Phillies.
With Moniak, like Moniak, yeah, he was... It was really... Nobody knew until they picked, pretty much. Like, it was... That...
Yeah, like, we all thought it was going to be, it was Jason Groom or AJ...
Puck, AJ Puck, yeah.
Yeah, out of Florida, so...
And even this year, it's... For the MLB.
Yeah, no one knows.
Yeah, like, there's a lot of people who are saying, like, pretty much any of the top, you know, 8 prospects could go number 1. So it's like, well, who are you supposed to write about? Who are you supposed to scout? And whatnot. And I guess it gives you more to do, but not in the NHL.
Yeah, NHL, it's just... Like, you said with the number 2 thing, like, the 1-2 guys. It was Taylor Hall and Tyler Seguin... McDavid and Eichel. Man, there's been a few other examples of it, but it was like, I think there was Stamkos and I forget who went number 2 that year. Oh, well, when the Flyers last picked number 2, it was JVR and Patrick Kane. Like, I don't think there was really much of a debate as who was going number 2 or number 1 there. It was going to be those 2 guys, so... But yeah, so with Heischer... And, like, you guys have heard this all before, probably, if you know anything about the Flyers or the draft prospects. So fast, he is by far the fastest prospect in the draft. He uses his speed really well. Like, that's something that I've noticed when he, like, defensively. He may not look like the greatest defensive player, but he uses his speed to close the gap so well that he makes up for any type of defensive lacking.
Yeah.
So he might look out of position, but then he'll just use his speed to get right back. And that's not... You like your players to be in position more often than not, but, you know, if he can use the speed, then it's whatever. As long as he gets there and gets in position at some point, it's usually going to pan out.
Yeah. It's almost like a case like early career like Steve Smith, like in the NFL. Like, you knew, like, he obviously, Steve Smith was like insanely fast even late on in his career, but like early on in his career, like you could throw a ball to him and he could look like he's not even gonna come close to catching it. And he catches it, so it's like as long as he has his speed and his as long as he could use his speed to his advantage, I should say.
Yeah.
He'll be a insanely good hockey player because he could get away with those extra, aggressive plays and whatnot, or if he has like a defensive lapse or something like that, he can get away with it. So it's always obviously a good thing to have speed, and hockey's definitely one of the better sports to have speed in, for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's going to play a factor with some of the guys they'll talk about with second round pick possibilities. Just the final few things on Heischer. He's, again, got a great shot. Maybe not as accurate as Patrick is with it, or just not as consistently accurate. Fantastic playmaker, and I don't think he's going to play on the penalty kill at the NHL level just because his size isn't exactly typical for penalty killers. But I don't see any reason why a team like the Flyers or the Devils wouldn't put him on there. It's gonna be interesting. I don't think that he's necessarily gonna play a lot of PK minutes, but I don't think that teams are gonna be so worried about putting him on there. Like, he's done it before, so
yeah. He could do it, basically.
Yeah, exactly. He can do it. They're not gonna worry about that, I don't think. So on to the main thing with the second round pick possibilities. The Flyers hold the 44th pick in the second round. Basically how I went about picking the players to focus on, I just looked at players from 35 through 55. Yeah, 55 on the top 100 prospects list. The guys obviously that are in like there's only 2 players that I put that are in the 50 to 55 range. Those obviously are crazy. Like, I don't think they're gonna go with those guys, but I could. It's like assuming all the guys that they want are gone by then. It would make sense.
Yeah, or if something injury related were to come out or whatnot.
Yeah, exactly.
Then, but yeah.
So the first guy, if you are a hockey fan, you probably know this last name, Matthew Strome. 2 of his brothers are in the NHL currently. Dylan Strome was the top. I think he was the second overall pick by the Arizona Coyotes back in 2015. Or he would have been the 3rd pick, yeah, because that was the McDavid draft. So he was drafted by Arizona. He is. I don't think he's played in an NHL game yet, but he is most likely going to this year or next year, if you will. Yeah, it would be next year. But he is one of the most highly touted prospects in the NHL. Ryan Strome is the oldest Strome brother, and he is 3rd, 4th line center with the Islanders. He's still projected to be better than that, like a 2nd line center, probably 50 points a year. But he just hasn't amounted to that yet. But Matthew Strome is the only winger in the family, which is interesting, and he looks like a fantastic player. Like, there's not that much to not like about Strome, but the main thing with him is just the fact that his skating is so bad. I didn't really notice it the first few times I had watched, but then when I read the scouting report on sportsnet.ca, and they mentioned like his skating is such a huge problem, and when you look at him skate, it's kind of ugly to watch. Like, his strides are just so short, they're choppy, and he just doesn't really impress you with his skating, and he can't really. Like, we praise Heischer and Patrick so much for their skating ability. Strome is the complete opposite. He's not a good skater at all. His shot is great, though. He's pretty good around the net. He's got good hands. He seems to be that he would be a good two-way player. It's just his skating is such an issue. So that's why he's falling so much in draft rankings. So, if any, I would be surprised if he's there for him at 44. I feel like he's probably going to be a late first or a really early second. I don't think he makes it past 10 picks in the second round. But if he's there at 44, you kind of have to go with him just because of the the plus side with him.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's a high risk, high reward pick, but if it works out, you get a guy who can maybe score 30 goals a season and play pretty good defense. Mm-hmm. So, it would be good to get him, but I just don't imagine he's going to be there. Next guy that I put on the list is a guy that I really want to get just because he's such a... what is the main thing that Flyers fans want for, the team right now? What would you say is, the main thing that people want?
Probably people who could score.
And that's what this guy does. People all the time are like, oh, we want a scoring winger. We want a pure goal scorer. Nikita Popyagayev, this dude, 6'5", 202. On EliteProspects.com, they list him as 6'6", I think, so I'm not sure if it's
He's
whichever
tall,
one
basically.
it is. Yeah, he is a very tall human being.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
And his shot is just through the freaking roof. As soon as I started watching highlights of him, the one-timers, the wrist shots, the slap shots, it's just, he's so good. And despite the fact that he's as big as he is, he's not really a power forward, which is kind of weird, but he would basically play like Ovechkin, just not as physical. And I think his shot is extremely good, to the point where, he could probably be an Ovechkin type. He's not obviously going to be as good as him, but he's got that scoring ability.
Yeah, and it also, obviously it says that he is a good skater. When you're 6'6" and can skate
that's very good.
like a small, not like a small forward, but like a low 6 foot forward, then you got something going for you there, especially when you're a goal scorer as well.
Yeah, definitely. And he I use basically a lot of the scouting reports from the HockeyWriters.com, and the strengths listed for him: great size, which obviously, natural goal scorer, skates very well and is agile on his skates. The only improvements that they said that he should make are that he's not physical in spite of his size, which it's whatever to me. I don't think he really needs to be. I think he just needs to learn how to protect the puck with his size. He just needs to learn how to use it. He doesn't necessarily have to be a physical player. He just has to learn how to use his size and be effective with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you're 6'6", you don't have to be an aggressive player. It helps. Obviously, it's hockey. You need to be physical in hockey, but when you're 6'6" and you could score, you don't necessarily have to be aggressive.
Exactly, and I get that you want him to be because of how big he is, but it's not necessarily something that needs to happen for him to be a good player.
Yeah.
His shot is good enough, and strangely enough, he had more assists than goals this year, which you would think for a pure goal scorer that would just never happen. It would be like a Jeff Carter situation where it's 20 assists, but he's got 40, 35 goals. Mm-hmm. And they put that he's a one-dimensional player, which you don't necessarily like to have players who are one-dimensional, but if he can score at the rate that Popyagayev is most likely going to be able to score at, then I don't think that it's going to be that big of an issue.
Yeah.
Next guy on the list is Pierre-Olivier Joseph. I'm not necessarily that high on this guy just because he's another left-handed defenseman. I couldn't really find that much on him, honestly. I looked at a lot of highlights of these guys and their film and everything to see how they played. There wasn't anything on Joseph, so that was kind of strange, the fact that I couldn't really find anything. He's the things with him is the fact that his shot isn't that great. He's not necessarily the most offensive player, even though he's got good vision. He makes pretty good passes, but he just doesn't seem to be a Shane Gostisbehere or a Travis Sanheim type of offensive production projected for him. Mm-hmm. So
something that does scare me about this profile is the weight. He's 6'1", 160.
Yeah, the 160 thing is...
Yeah, that's a bit... obviously he's, 17 years old, 18 years old. Yeah, he's 17. So it's like he still has time to frame out and whatnot, add to his frame. He's 6 foot, so he could probably comfortably, like, to compare, Ghost is what, probably 2, 6'3", probably around 180, 190 or so, and so you figure at a 6 foot lefty, he could probably fill out to around 180 or so. So, and obviously he'll have time to do that, because if they draft him in the second round, more often than, or more likely than not, he won't play in the NHL right off the bat. So he'll have time to definitely not. Yeah, he'll have time to fill out the frame, but still coming out of high school, and obviously probably amateur leagues and whatnot. 160 at 6 foot still a little bit alarming, even only at 17.
Yeah, that's the thing with him, and he's definitely a guy that's going to take a while for him to get to the NHL at this point. Like, unless he fills out that frame within 2 years, I don't think he's the guy who could reach the team until
2020.
Yeah, probably 2020, 2021. Yeah. The quote I like for this, for him, is this, and it's on the profile for him. He's an intriguing prospect, big mobile defender, no fun to play against, plays a two-way game, but he looks like he will develop into more of a shutdown physical defender at the next level, which I think that's weird, because with how, again, he's only 160, so I just wonder how durable he's going to be able to be, given the fact that he's not really going to... I don't think he's going to end up being big enough to play a shutdown role. I just don't think that he's going to be able to be a physical defenseman in the NHL at only 190. Because I can't imagine him putting on 40 to 50 pounds.
Yeah, no,
that's just crazy to imagine.
Yeah, you got to figure he would only put on 20 pounds, 30 at the most, I would say, but
yeah,
still.
And the thing again with him, he's a left-handed defenseman, and we have so many of them already. We barely have any right-handed defensemen in the system. It's crazy how little we have of that. Gudis is the only one on the NHL roster, and I don't really think we have anyone in the system who's right-handed.
Can we convert some of our lefty defenders to left-handed relievers for the Phillies, or no?
I mean, they could probably do a better job than Joely Rodriguez.
Yeah, you're
or
probably
Adam Morgan,
right.
So
yeah, well, Adam Morgan, that's a guarantee. I could probably do better than Adam Morgan lefty, and I'm a righty. So,
now you're gonna get some kind of tweet about that, right?
Yeah.
Adam Morgan's fiance or girlfriend or whatever is gonna tweet you now, like Michael Marriott's wife did.
Mm-hmm. Probably.
Oh God. If you don't know about that, I don't... Did we talk about it on the podcast or no?
I think we did, for 5 minutes or something like that, but...
Yeah, I don't think it was that much.
And it was in, the second, or something like that, because it was, during... Oh, actually, no, it wasn't the second. It was probably, the 5th or 6th, because I think it was, right as spring training was starting, and that was when we were, a month or so in, so...
Yeah, probably didn't spend too much time talking about that if we did at all.
Yeah.
But, so next on the list is Henry Jokiharju. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah, that looks right.
What I like about him is the fact that he's a right-handed defenseman, and that's the thing. If we're gonna take a defenseman in the second round, I would rather they take a righty, just because we need them. We don't really have any, and it's just gonna make a lot of sense to go with them. But with him, he's just... There's not that much to not like about his game. Good skater, good speed, pretty good offensively. The film that I've watched from him, he's pretty calm passing-wise. He makes a lot of smart reads. There's not much to hate about his game. He has a good shot, good passing ability. Doesn't really take a lot of slap shots, but that's not really an issue with him as long as he can create effective shots. The scouting report that I looked at, they said that there's no doubt that he's one of the top Finnish defensemen in the 2017 draft, and that he's a second rounder at this point, which makes sense with Merrick's rankings. Jukka Harju was 43rd on that, so just one spot above where the Flyers would pick. Who knows if he's actually there, because the right-handed defenseman thing will definitely bump him up a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, if he's there, I definitely would want him, because, again, the guy's been, from what I've seen, he looks like a really good defenseman. He's only 17. Not the biggest defenseman, but compared to Joseph, like, he's 17, he's 6 foot, but he's 170 pounds. So he's already 10 pounds heavier than Joseph is, and they're the same age. So definitely something you want to see in that. This past season with the Portland Winterhawks in the WHL, he put up 48 points in 71 games, 9 goals, and 39 assists. Yeah, just a really solid defenseman, and I definitely wouldn't mind seeing them take him at 44. Next guy is Connor Timmins. This was another right-handed defenseman. Put up solid numbers with the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds in the OHL. Yeah, OHL for them. He's 6'1", 181. Some of the main things with him, they said, the quotes with him, he's a very smart defenseman, good vision, good offensive instincts. There was a goal that I watched him score. I think this was part of either a hat-trick night or a 2-goal night. He just carried the puck through the neutral zone, deked out, I think it was at least two forwards, and then just went top shelf on the goalie, and it was like, okay, I wouldn't mind having this guy on my team.
Look at that, and if you look at, two seasons in a row, 15-16 to 16-17, played for the same team in the same league, played 7 games more in 2016-17 than he did in 15-16, and scored, 48 more points?
Yep.
Yeah, so, plus he had 69 penalty minutes, so that's nice. But, but yeah, like, when you score 48 points more in the following season in the same league, same team. Obviously, you're a year old and whatnot, you have experience, but that's it really shows like the development of a player when you could do that. Like from a year 1 to a year 2 player, with that much more of a jump in performance, it's always a good sign, obviously.
The thing with him and why I don't think he's going to be there at 44, just because of how great of a season he had after having a mess season in his first year with the Greyhounds. It's like the Travis Sanheim effect. Like, when the Flyers drafted him, it was, he was such a fast riser. Like, he crept up on the boards at the last second, and all of a sudden he was a first-round prospect. And before that, I don't think he was really anything. Like, he was a late first or an early second, but he wasn't like... Well, I think the Flyers drafted him at 17, or it was somewhere around there. But this could be the same thing with Timmins. He could go earlier than expected, or he could go where basically Merrick has him listed as, because he is 45th on his rankings. So, who knows? He might slip to us, but he's right-handed defenseman. He's pretty good 2 ways. There's really not... Like, the only improvement really that he can make is just to build into his frame more, but even then, like, he's really good at intercepting passes, reading the lanes. Another really good skater, makes good passes. And the thing with him and Jukka Harju that I really like is how well that they can read the play, like read what's going on. Watching the highlights for Jukka Harju, he made a lot of interceptions were plays that most defensemen don't make. So it's that hockey IQ, and you love players who have good hockey IQ, but can also have the natural ability to contend with some of the best defensemen and players in the league.
Mm. Oh yeah, absolutely. And like how you were mentioning before, with the likelihood of him dropping to as a 44, teams always like guys who improve quickly, and as we mentioned before, a 48-point jump in just one season indicates a lot of development, a lot of maturity, a lot of willing to learn and willing to improve. So those guys, especially guys who are borderline first, either borderline late first, early second round guys, they tend not to drop, and that's not just the NHL. That's all leagues. So yeah, the likelihood that he drops is kind of low.
But I mean, if he's there, it's gonna be tough to pass him up, and it all depends on who's there at the time. But he's definitely someone that I wouldn't mind them picking up. Again, like if they're gonna go defenseman, I want them to go a right-handed defenseman or just pick a forward, because it doesn't really make much sense to pick another lefty defenseman when we already have so many of them. And I get in hindsight, it's not that big of an issue if they're lefty or righty, but it just helps with matchups and stuff, and especially for the penalty, for the power plays, just have that one-timer always available. And it would just be nice to see a good right-hand defenseman come up through, especially with how rare of prospects they are.
Yeah.
Next on the list, Ivan Lodnia. Only center I put on this list just because I don't think that they would go with another center after taking Patrick or Hischier. But the thing with Lodnia is he's listed as a left winger and a center, so I'm not sure exactly which one he would. I'm assuming they would just make him play the wing then, because he's played both pretty consistently. Most of the highlights that I watched for him, he played the wing, but then on Merrick's Top 100, they listed him as a center, so I'm not sure what the deal is there, if he just is listed on their roster as a center or whatever. But he's definitely another good skater, great passer too, great playmaker. The thing with him is the fact that crap, let me see this, because I forgot what I was going to say.
Just as a side note, real quick, the Flyers have had some good luck with guys named Ivan. So
yeah, fair enough. There's a certain guy named Provorov on the team that I would.
Yeah, that guy's all right.
Oh, yeah, he's all right. Here it is. 6 OHLers ranked A by Central Scouting: Lodnia, Mackenzie Entwistle, Matthew Strome, Nicholas. I think it's Nicholas Hag, Owen Tippett, and then Gabriel Velarde. So pretty good company there for Lodnia to be put in with those guys. So he's another guy that definitely, I think he is probably one of the more likely guys that he would be there at 44 for the Flyers. I don't know, again, if they would really go with him just because of the fact that he may technically be a center, so I'm not sure if they want to go with another center after taking one. He put up 57 points with the Erie Otters in the OHL this year, 24 goals, 33 assists. Only 2 goals in 22 playoff games, though, and he didn't have any assists, so that's just a strange stat. You would expect more from him, but...
Yeah, and also, he's 17, so obviously more time to grow is there.
Yeah.
And another thing is, when he was picked up by the Otters, it was April 2015, and he was under 5'10", so I think he was about 5'8", 5'9". Now he's over 5. Now he's 5'11", nearly 6 foot, 180. So, and that's at 17. So, so in 2015 he was 16 years old. 15 when he was drafted. So you have to figure 2 years time, grew probably at least 2 inches, put on some weight, some productive weight, obviously, and only 17 now. So by the time he would be NHL ready, more than likely as a second rounder, probably another at least 3 years down the line, maybe 4 years down the line. Could very well be over 6 foot. Could very well be 200, 210 pounds. And obviously, like you said, the stats weren't eye-popping. They weren't anything incredible, but, with size comes production a lot of times, so you never know with them.
Pretty much. And again, this is a guy you probably wouldn't see play in the NHL for until 2019, 2020, just because of the fact that he is 17 and he still has a bit more weight to put on. But he'd be another project, and wouldn't necessarily be opposed to them going with a project in the second round, just because with the fact that you got that luxury in taking Patrick or Hischier in the first round, so you get a little bit more leeway with the rest of the draft.
Yeah, well, for sure.
So next on the list, Jesper Bokvist. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah, Bokvist, Bokvist.
Yeah, one of the two.
Yeah.
Another left winger. Just another really good prospect. He has a great shot from the film that I've been watching. And it's interesting. He's actually listed as a center left wing on the scouting report, so I haven't seen him play any center in the film that I've watched, but he obviously is able to. And strangely enough, he plays for the same team that Oscar Lindblom played for.
And Sandstrom, yeah.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah.
So, for Brynäs, he scored 6 points in 16 games last year. The previous year, he only played in 8 games for them and had 1 point, but for the under-20 team, or the J20 team, he had 58 points in 38 games in 15-16, and this past season, he was a point-per-game player. He had 15 and 15. Again, just a really freaking amazing skater. That was the first thing I noticed with him. Amazing first step. Got great acceleration. Countless times I just saw him beat players to the puck, win puck battles, to skate around guys, and that opened up so many offensive scoring chances for him. Pretty good puck handler, but again, the shot is just one of the main things with him. He constantly was just going top shelf on guys, opening up scoring lanes. And pretty good passer, too. There was a play where he almost went right around the net and then made a backhand pass to the slot, and it wound up as a goal. Just another, I don't think he has necessarily the scoring ability that a Papugayev will have, but he definitely will be a good play driver. And for a team that already has a lot of good ones, putting him on a line with a Voracek or even with Couturier, putting him with Shen at one point just because of how much Braden Shen needs a play driving force with him, would definitely be a good guy to put with him. Main thing with him, he just needs to probably get bigger. He's not, other than that's going to be the case with a lot of these prospects. They're not going to be the biggest players in the world, but other than that, there's not really much to not like about him. And again, he's a winger, so that's definitely going to be, I think, a main focus point for the Flyers and for their second pick. Robin Salo is next. He's another defenseman. Left-handed defenseman, though, so I wouldn't necessarily be in favor of them going with him just because left-handed defenseman. Otherwise, though, he's a pretty solid prospect. The only things with him, his skating, he has a great first step, but he's not exactly great afterwards. So, it's he'll look at it first, and then all of a sudden he'll just turn into a Matthew Strome, where it's a really choppy stride, and it's not exactly something that you want to see from a defenseman, especially when you're gonna have to skate backwards and get back against guys like that Anthony Ciu from the Red Wings, or have to go up against guys like Crosby who can just skate past people at will. But otherwise, he's pretty solid. He's pretty good in his own zone. He makes a lot of really smart passes. He can intercept the puck Joka Harju does, like Timmins does. So another really good hockey IQ player. It's just the skating is an issue, and for a defenseman, that worries me a lot more than it does for a winger, obviously, because skating is going to be a lot more important for him just to get back in time for breakaways and stuff.
Yeah, obviously, defensemen need to be good skaters, and like you said, he has his first step is not bad. It's pretty decent, but when you have choppy and whatnot strides to follow up your first step, it pretty much just makes your first step irrelevant at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Because no matter if you get that good first step, it's only going to come in handy in certain situations. Like if like a player's out front and he needs to get there to block a shot or get his stick in time, he's going to be fine in that situation. But if there's a guy screaming down the wing, it's going to be tough for him to keep up, and that's going to be a huge issue. And the good thing is though that he is so great with positioning, and he's good with gap control. So it's like if he could work on his skating and he can make that into a strength and not a weakness, then he could definitely be a major defenseman for the team. He could be a top 4 guy. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be. He's put up pretty decent offensive stats. Nothing spectacular, but his passing ability is pretty good. I feel like he would, if I had to compare him to anyone in the Flyers system right now, probably Robert Hagg, just because not going to be the most offensive player, but he can join the rush. He can still generate offense. It's just the point totals aren't going to be there. So, last guy on the list, another defenseman, Max Gilden, played for the U.S. development team, so there really wasn't much film for him. And obviously it's not going up against that great of competition just because he's not facing... he's not in an actual pro league. It's just the U.S.'s development camp and development, their U18 teams. But he has put up solid numbers. He put up 33 points in 63 games with the U.S. U18 team. Try saying that 5 times fast, goddamn.
U.S. U18... what, I didn't remember what you asked me to say.
U.S. U18 team. Oh my god.
U.S. U18 team. Okay, yeah, I'm good.
Main thing with him though, great, amazing slap shot, great one-timer. Maybe not the most accurate, but it's one of probably the hardest shot that I've seen from any of the defense prospects that I've been looking at. Decent skater, not that great, but it's not necessarily as much of a weakness as it is for a guy like Salo or a guy like Strome. He's 6'3" and 198, I believe, or 191. So he can play a bit more physical. He does play more physical, so he has that over guys like Salo. Otherwise, he's again really good instincts, really good positioning. Like Joe Kaharju and Timmins, he can break up passing lanes pretty well. And just remember this because I wanted to bring this up because it was interesting with Yuka Harju. He, despite not being that big, he places hits at a really good time. They're effective hits. It's not necessarily gonna be a highlight reel hit, but he makes he does it effectively. He gets a player off the puck. So that's something that maybe I'm pretty sure Gilden would have that ability. I haven't seen it because there's just not that much footage of him. But the comparison that they made was Seth Jones of the Nashville Predators, or Columbus Blue Jackets, right? He's on there now. But yeah, Gilden definitely would be another guy that I feel like he would be a stretch at 44. He's ranked at 53 and Salo was 52. So not necessarily guys that I think that they're going to pick at 44 just because I think there'll be better players available. But definitely someone they could be interested in. And just to wrap it up, some of the guys I just left off because they're centers, and I just don't think that they'll go with it. Stelio Mateos for Brandon. Zach Gallant for Peterborough of the OHL. Scott Reedy with the U.S. National Development Team. And that is about it. So those are just some of the guys that they could go with that in the second round. next week I'll probably do the same thing just for third round prospects.
Yeah, so obviously I know a lot about this. I clearly spoke much more than Kyle did there.
Totally.
As you hear Kyle just chugging away at some water. But anyway, so that was obviously a lot of Flyers possible second rounders, along with Nolan Patrick and Nico Hischier, who, one of those two guys will be our first rounder. And then, possibly any of those guys that Kyle just described will be a second rounder. But there are obviously other possibilities. It is the second round is the 44th pick, so you never know for certain, as we do with our first rounder. But so yeah, to move away from Flyers and now into some Eagles things. So obviously, there's no such thing as a prospect for football. Rather, there are rookies, there are young guys. So we'll be talking a little bit about those guys. So to begin with, everybody's favorite Eagle, Carson Wentz. He came into the spring practices and early summer practices and OTAs with kind of a mixed profile, I guess, if you want to call it, because obviously he started last season amazingly. He started his rookie season very well, but then as the season kind of went on, defenses started to kind of figure him out, and he just couldn't seem to adjust all that great. But he has come in this year, and there's really been no complaints about him from anybody, except for Malcolm Jenkins at one point, when Carson Wentz ran a hard snap or ran a hard count at OTAs. Malcolm Jenkins did he spoke out against that, but it's
he didn't care for it too much.
Yeah, he didn't care for it too much, but it's OTAs. They're just joking around, obviously. But but Wentz, he has come into this season with improved mechanics. So many people are saying that his release is a lot quicker. Obviously, last season when you would see him wind up, it would just be don't get me wrong, not some huge crazy Hail Mary wind up. But it would be a little bit longer than you'd like for a guy his size. So he's shortened that up a little bit. It's a lot more compact. His whole entire pretty much regimen, I guess if you want to call it, while he's dropping back, has gotten a lot better. Pretty much, which is what all the reports at this point are saying. So obviously, as a second year guy, with coming into the season, it's always a possibility with the sophomore slump because of, obviously he's still young, and defenses very well could adapt to him, especially with NFL preparation and NFL coaching. Defenses are going to know what to do against Wentz. But the difference is this year he actually has actual wide receivers to throw to. So it's going to be a different Carson Wentz this year. You'll be able to tell without a doubt, because obviously of the wide receivers that we added plus his improved mechanics. So obviously really excited for Carson Wentz this year.
Yeah, definitely. It's just been great to hear all the things like that coming out of training camp. The fact that he's worked on the mechanics and that they're better now, and like you said, having those weapons is only going to help him, and especially with improved mechanics and shorter windup and all that. The fact that he has better weapons now is only going to help him more become what we expected him to be when drafting him number 2.
Yeah, absolutely. So to move on to some rookies, rookies that will be on the team this season. So Derek Barnett, obviously our first round pick at number 14, he has turned some heads at OTAs. His first impressions have been very good, pretty much for everybody. Obviously you've seen, I'm sure most of people that are listening follow Bleeding Green Nation. They've probably heard, obviously all those guys reporting that Barnett has been crazy. Crazy impressive to begin OTAs. Pretty much he's showing everything that basically he's come as advertised plus a little bit more. Some pleasant surprises have shown up, and everything that we thought he would be, he has been. His outside rush has been insane. There were a few videos and whatnot of him I couldn't find them, but there were a few videos that I saw of him clean beating Lane Johnson outside. So that's a pretty good sign, if I must say so myself. And also recently he did sign his rookie deal, which is $12.8 million over 4 years, and I'm pretty sure it's a $7.5 million signing bonus that he will get. But something that is very good, obviously, the Eagles' defense last season, it was pretty good. It was definitely the strength of the team for much of the year. Jim Schwartz obviously did a very good job with what he had last season, and he is very, very excited about Derek Barnett. He's pretty much obviously everybody knows that Barnett broke Reggie White's records at a bunch of Reggie White's records at Tennessee, and that is that isn't bad. So
yeah, not pretty good guy to beat there.
Yeah, definitely. And in this in his quotes and whatnot, he's pretty much saying how much he could contribute and how quickly he can be ready is up to him and the coaches. It's meaning the coach's job to get him ready to be out there. But we're really excited about him. He could turn a corner and be like this high off the ground. You guys will notice that when you see him out there. He's also been giving great effort in practice. We've pointed out his effort a couple times, chasing the ball and those kind of things. For a rookie to be doing that kind of stuff has been pretty impressive so far. So obviously, whenever you get rookies in camp and in practices, and they're giving it more than 100%, there's usually nothing to complain about, especially with a guy of Barnett's stature and with his skill level. So, like Wentz, I'm really looking forward to see Barnett in the defense this season, especially with that front seven. Like that's the line and the linebackers. They're gonna be something to reckon with this season for sure.
And the best thing about Barnett, he was there from day one at OTAs, unlike a certain defensive player.
Yeah, Fletcher Cox. Jesus,
he's a real
Let's just
leader.
crucify him. Let's just crucify. But yeah, so obviously
just turns into the Screw Fletcher Cox episode.
So yeah, obviously Barnett. Looking forward to him next year or this upcoming season. But Russell Douglas, to move on. Obviously our third round, 99th overall pick, cornerback. He is also a guy that a lot of people are excited about because he was projected a little bit higher than 99th. I'm pretty sure he was projected at one point. I want to say he was projected a late round first, but then some concerns came up and whatnot. He dropped, but we got him at 99, so we did get him at a very good spot. And a lot of people are excited about him because the main concern with him was the fact that he's a tall guy. He's a tall guy for a corner, and there was a lot of knocks on him that he's way too stiff, and he won't be able to turn athletic enough to cover NFL wideouts. But a lot of reports coming out of camp is that he is pretty much that's not actually what the thing is. Like he's pretty athletic for his size. He's a lot less stiff. Plus, obviously when you're a cornerback and you're going up against, because as we know, as we've said multiple times, the NFL is a passing league, because of how many very good quarterbacks and very good wide receivers are in the league. So cornerbacks need to be, competitive. They need to be in wide receivers' faces a lot, and a lot of people are saying that that's pretty much what's been happening with him. He's been insanely competitive, and obviously when you have, Alshon Jeffrey, Torrey Smith, even Jordan Matthews, Zach Ertz, guys like that to go up against, it's pretty decent preparation for your first NFL season. Obviously, he's not going to be the immediate solution because we do have Sidney Jones, who is a little bit better of a corner than him. He's currently hurt. But obviously, to have a guy of Douglas's skill level in camp and performing well against our wide receivers, Alshon and Torrey and Jordan, it's a good sign. And obviously, you have to be excited about him. Not only this season, but moving forward, definitely, because he'll be tandems with Sidney Jones in the future. So, yeah, that's pretty much it with Rasul Douglas. And then another guy who, not many people kind of love this pick, but with how they're using Donnell Pumphrey in camp, I'm becoming more of a fan of this pick for sure. Basically, how they're using him is a lot of people are quoting him as a move player. He's really not even being, put in the backfield and kind of just standing there taking handoffs, going or taking play actions and whatnot. He's pretty much being used as a decoy a lot. He's moving around the formation a bunch. He's lined up in the slot. He's lined up in the backfield. But yeah, like I said, he does move around a ton. And pretty much the idea there is to get him space because he is pretty much a Darren Sproles size, like we mentioned back when we kind of recapped the draft picks. And obviously Darren Sproles isn't the biggest guy. Pumphrey is pretty much about the same size, height-wise and weight-wise. So you need to get guys of like that space to work with because they're not going to be able to break tackles and gas by a lot of guys because of the physicality of the league. Most guys are over 6 foot. These guys are only not even 5'10". So they're pretty much my height, and I'm not in the NFL for a reason. So
he would be like I'm just imagining him as basically like a Tavon Austin kind of.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, not as high of a potential as Tavon Austin, but
that type of player.
But that type of that's what he'll be. That's where he'll be slotted in at, pretty much. Like he'll be moving around the formation more than he probably catches or gets handed the football in most cases.
Imagine putting him and Sproles in the backfield in like a shotgun set, and defense is having to be like, oh my god, what if they go to the screen for either of these two guys?
Yeah, or
like, that's gonna be a nightmare for defenses.
Or do something with a guy that I will be talking about in a little bit. I'm not gonna spoil it yet, but we'll just move on. So Greg Ward, who was one of the Eagles' undrafted free agent signings. He has opened some eyes. Pretty much like a lot of our rookies. I'll talk about two more in a little bit. But he is changing positions. So he was signed originally as a quarterback, but he will be moving to wide receiver, which, it makes sense because he's a guy that he's pretty much he's pretty much a guy who will throw less in the league than Russell Wilson. And that's quite a feat in itself. So
yeah, really.
So really, Greg Ward moving to wide receiver is a good thing, and Brandon Lee Gowton, who is obviously from Bleeding Green Nation, from SB Nation, rhyme. He asked or he talked to SB Nation's college football blog, Underdog Dynasty, which I believe is the Houston University's thing, which is where I'm not too sure, honestly, but it's a SB Nation. It covers the American Conference USA, Sun Belt, and independent football, which is where Houston plays. So, and he asked Joey Broback, who is a writer for those. He specifically for Houston, and basically he asked him how pretty much what his college career was like, and he said thrilling. So a lot of guys, last year when the nightmare wide receiver situation was taking place, a lot of guys were like, "Oh, give Paul Turner a chance. Give guys like that Tregs, give guys like that a chance." That's pretty much what Greg Ward is gonna be hyped up as, pretty much as like a Paul Turner or a Tregs, which is a good and bad thing. But really, we need to kind of not call for a guy like this anymore because obviously of our improved wide receivers now. But if he can, if he could end up helping the team in the long run as like a slot guy. But the problem with that is we already have that in Pumphrey and right now in Sproles. So it will be kind of a tough fit for him. If he were to make the team, he'd get very limited snaps. But you never know, really. He could turn some heads, and next year, more likely than not, will be Sproles' last season. He's more than likely going to retire.
Yeah.
So he could have a fit long term there, I guess, because we do have Pumphrey, so he'll have a spot kind of as a wideout only kind of guy. He won't have to line up in the backfield much. So really, I'm a fan of them changing to wide receiver because obviously we do have a Wentz, so don't need another quarterback, at least yet. I'm not going to guarantee anything with him, but Wentz, he's looking good. But yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about it, Kyle? Do you feel that it's a good, well, obviously it is a good move to move him to wide receiver. But
yeah,
do you feel that it's like a good kind of fit for him moving forward? Obviously not immediately because of our, Pumphrey, Sproles, even, we'll throw Matt Collins in that conversation too, but moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's a good move going forward just because, like you said, we have Wentz and backup quarterbacks, they're not exactly difficult to find, and I don't think that he would ever really amount to anything as a QB, judging by obviously the move to wide receiver and just some of the things that we've read about him. But I think he'll basically just, like you said, he'll be like a Tregs guy, he'll be like a Turner guy. But luckily, I don't think he'll have the fan. I don't necessarily want to say the fan support because they'll obviously support him. He plays for the Eagles. But I don't think you'll have people saying, we need to make this guy our starting wide receiver because we have Alshon now. We have Torrey Smith. Like, Jordan Matthews is now our third best receiver.
Yeah.
So it's not going to have the fanfare that Turner had in preseason last year or that Tregs had once he got signed. So I think it's a fine move. You're adding more depth at wide receiver, which Wentz needs all the weapons he can get. And I can't imagine this hurting the Eagles in any sense.
Yeah, pretty much my thoughts exactly. It's not gonna hurt to have him as a wideout, adding depth, like Kyle said. So yeah, but a guy that not a lot of people were too high on, Corey Clement, who is a running back out of Wisconsin. He was also an undrafted free agent signing by the Eagles. Personally, one of my favorite signings that they did make, of the undrafted free agent signings that they did make, and which, by the way, was very good. You guys probably have seen a lot of pieces on undrafted free agent signings, and the Eagles were, without a question, one of the best teams in signing those guys. So, Corey Clement, who, like I said, running back out of Wisconsin, he could, if he does make the team, which is obviously the thing, he could have a little bit more important of a role on the team if when he's on it. So obviously we signed LeGarrette Blount just a few weeks back, and we do have Darren Sproles, and we do have Donnell Pumphrey, plus Wendell Smallwood. Wendell Smallwood.
Eli.
Yeah, I don't know why Eli just popped in my Wendell Smallwood. So obviously those four guys pretty much locks to make the team. But Clemens is kind of that guy that you don't really know if he's going to or not. But if he does, he will have a role. That's the thing. So at this moment in time, LeGarrette Blount is pretty much our power back slash back on a lot of plays. But obviously he can't play every snap. So he's gonna be also our third down back more often than not, in like a close first down situation or goal line, whatnot. Then Pumphrey and Sproles are going to be using the slot a good amount. Plus, like I said before, they're going to be just moved around a ton. So that kind of leaves a thing, especially with Ryan Matthews leaving, that kind of leaves a spot to where it's like, okay, well, when we just kind of want to run the ball on first down but don't want to expend Blunt's energy so early on in the game, who do we go to? That answer will be Corey Clement if he does make the team. So really, I'm rooting for him to make the team because I kind of wanted the Eagles to draft him when he was still there in the later rounds. So the fact that he did go undrafted was kind of a surprise, but he could really be a guy that plays more of a role on the Eagles than some of our other rookies, such as Pumphrey or Mac Hollins and whatnot. So personally, I like that signing more than a lot of people did because I was high on him into the draft when I was doing kind of my late round scouting, if you want to call it. So yeah, he could, without a doubt, be on the team and have a very good role. But that's the thing. He could also not make the team, which is a weird kind of concept that he could have a big role if he's on it, but he could also not make it. So, it could.
Yeah, you don't find that with too many players.
Yeah, really, you don't. So it's kind of a weird situation there, but hopefully can make the team. And then just to round out the Eagles, Elijah Qualls, who defensive tackle, selected him with our last pick. But the thing is, this guy is big. He, I believe, is about 300 pounds, and I think he's like 6'4" or so. So he's a big guy. But like I was mentioning before, with something that we could possibly do with a Sproles or a Pumphrey or both for that matter, there are some talks about using Qualls as a fullback in some situations. So if we don't want to have, basically if we want to have, if there's a situation where if we were inside, say the 30-yard line, the 20-yard line, something like that, and we needed 4 or 5 yards, and we didn't think it was the right situation to use LeGarrette Blount in. You just put like a power back, basically, or not a power back. You put a Pumphrey, or you put a Sproles in there, and then you put Elijah Qualls in front of them, and just have them with our offensive line just kind of cause mayhem in front of whoever it is, Sproles or Pumphrey. So that could be an interesting thing. But there are also people, incredibly surprised at how athletic this guy is for being like 6'4", 300 pounds. But really, that was kind of his profile coming out of college. It shouldn't really come as much of a surprise because when he was at Washington, he was pretty good. Like, he wasn't a bad player at all. And now, if he does make the team, it's kind of like a Corey Clement situation. If he makes the team, he could have a really solid role. Or actually, no, he'll more than likely be on the team. But if he makes the team as a defensive tackle / fullback, he could have a pretty big role. Because that situation happens more often than you think, and you don't want to be too predictable in the NFL and just use LeGarrette Blount every single time, or throw in Wendell Smallwood. I almost said Eli again. Throw Wendell Smallwood into that situation every single time. So using Qualls in that kind of situation with a Pumphrey or a Sproles would be a really good thing. And obviously to have guys who are athletic, 300 pounds, 6'4", and can play fullback and defensive tackle. It's always a good thing to have, for sure.
Well, and funnily enough, there's in the Bleeding Green Nation article about Elijah Qualls, there's a video at the bottom of him playing running back in high school, and he just runs over everyone.
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's hysterical. But yeah, so that's
yeah, like he would take up like basically Bo Allen's role.
Yeah.
Then because I know they would like to that he was another guy that they thought of using as a fullback in some situations. So
yeah, pretty much. So yeah, it's really a good situation to be in with having Qualls.
Yeah.
And I'm rooting for them to give him a bigger role because he's freakishly athletic for being 300 pounds and when you could play fullback and
you don't find that often.
when you could run and be athletic as a 300 pounder, I don't really see many reasons as to why you shouldn't be a fullback in the NFL. So, or at least
exactly
along with being a tackle.
Yeah. So moving on to the Sixers, we're just gonna go over two of the possible candidates for the Sixers to take at 3 overall. I'm just gonna assume that Markelle Fultz goes number 1 because that's seems to be the consensus number 1.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go through Lonzo Ball and Josh Jackson. First of all, would you if Lonzo Ball is there at 3, do you take him? Like if it's Lonzo Ball versus Josh Jackson, which do you take?
You see, the thing is, I would say it depends for me, really. Because if he were to fall to 3, that more than likely would mean that Josh Jackson went 2, or even 1 for that matter. But I'm not sure. It really depends who goes 2. If Josh Jackson goes 2 and Lonzo's there at 3, I would say I would take Lonzo. But if Josh Jackson's there at 2 and Lonzo falls, if Josh Jackson's there at 3 along with Lonzo, that kind of puts me in more of a, I don't know, situation, because I'll take Lonzo over De'Aaron Fox. I'll take Lonzo over Jason Tatum, but I don't know if I would take Lonzo over Josh Jackson. So I'm not too sure, really.
That's basically where I am too. Like they're obviously two like very different players. One is a guard, one is a forward. But yeah, like I don't know. I would think I would just take Jackson just because of the. Like, I don't know, I just don't want Lonzo Ball and his dad anywhere near the Sixers organization, and I know that's like a shitty reason to not want to take someone, but
yeah,
the things going on with him, like, and it's not even his fault, but like, his dad is just a freaking train wreck of a human being.
Mm-hmm.
But so the main things with Lonzo, obviously a great shooter, fantastic ball handler, fantastic dribble moves, pretty good rebounder for point guard, pretty good defensively. It's from the film that I watched, a lot of people seem to get by him, but he doesn't necessarily get beat necessarily. Like, he keeps with them. It's just that they kind of get the edge on him, but usually, there's obviously going to be a center there to back him up, so Embiid would just be there waiting to block it.
Yeah, I mean, when you
who comes near him.
when you got, Ben and Dario and JoJo behind you, I don't think you got to worry all that much about just getting beat off the dribble. Like, good for you. You got past me. Now deal with Simmons and JoJo and Dario just waiting for you to eat you alive. Yeah.
So, especially if it's going to be a point guard that Ball's guarding, because they're most likely going to be smaller than him. So, good luck. You got past one person taller than you. Have fun with the 3 other ones. So, fantastic driver to the net, though. Has a lot of good so he's obviously great from long range, great driver. Not exactly the best with pulling up and just mid-range shots. And his shooting motion is one of the weirdest things I've ever watched. Like it
was hysterical when I'm not sure if you've ever seen it, but like they had there was a video of LeBron like imitating it. It was hysterical because he's like coming way in front of him and he's like way over his head with the shots and everything. But
yeah, like I have no idea how he makes shots because it just makes no sense. Because the ball's in his hands and it's so far down. Like, he doesn't seem like he's like his hands aren't far up at all.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the ball just like pops out of his hands and it goes in the net. I'm like,
Yeah,
wait,
like
what?
if you've never seen it, well, A, go watch it. B, if you don't feel like watching it, it's kind of like picture like Steph Curry's release early on in his career. Like, obviously now Steph's release is a little bit higher than it was, but imagine like
But back then,
imagine like an early career Steph, but have like a hitch in the release with like an arm bend, and it's weird.
and that might be why he's a streaky shooter, which is another thing that's kind of iffy with him. If he improves on his follow through and just his motion in general, it might be that issue could be resolved. For how like he's 6'6", I'm pretty sure, and it's weird that he's not more physical defensively. Like, he's obviously very fast, and he can. It's almost like a put everything back to the Flyers. It's almost like with the Heischer thing. Like, he's so fast, so that he uses that to make up for any defensive flaks. But he could be more physical. Like, Ball has the size to be physical. It's just that he doesn't seem to choose to be. But other than that, there's really not much to not like about him. And that's obvious. He's projected to go number 2, possibly even number 1. So, he is definitely one of the best prospects in the draft.
The thing, but real quick, I just want to point out, the situation with Lonzo would be a little bit interesting if he were to get drafted by the Sixers. Because obviously, as we all know, Brett Brown wants to use Ben Simmons as our point guard. And in the case that Lonzo is drafted, you have to wonder if who gets slotted out into the 2-guard position. Because our 3-4-5 at this point is pretty much set. Our 1-3-4-5 at this point is pretty much set with, obviously, JoJo at the 5, with Dario at the 4, Covington at the 3, more likely than not. Pretty much all we have to figure out is, will Ben Simmons play the 1, the 2? Could he play the 3 in a case where we need to go Rocco at the 2, I guess? But if Lonzo were to get drafted by the Sixers, the situation would be a little bit weird, because him and Ben Simmons are not the same player, but they both love to drive. They both aren't the greatest shooters, but they can shoot. Obviously, you have to be able to shoot if you're this high along in your basketball career. But they're really similar players. It's just that Ben Simmons just happens to be 7 foot tall almost.
Yeah.
So
he's got a few inches on him.
It's a weird situation if Lonzo does come to Philly, but it's nevertheless a good one to be in, because obviously Lonzo and Ben Simmons are both very good basketball players. So I'm sure Brett Brown and the player development guys and the coaching staff could figure it out to who would play the 1, the 2, the 3. Because honestly, you could probably move Cause even though Robert Covington is more often than not a 3-guard, you could start him at the 2 for a little bit, even though he really wouldn't be a 2-guard at that point. So,
I couldn't see Covington playing the 2 like long term.
No.
Like, that would just be if need be. But
and that's especially
like
just
you
like
said,
a thing even without, because we do have the possibility of signing a shooter. JJ Redick trading for a shooter,
fair enough.
Or Klay Thompson even possibly. So
best case scenario, Klay Thompson.
But it's the possibilities for the Sixers this offseason as to who they sign or who they trade for will definitely play into kind of the draft plan with who we take. I will more than likely.
Oh yeah, definitely. They already have a plan set in place for. Like, if one player falls, one doesn't, they're thinking far ahead. Like, okay, this is... Because they probably know who they're going to want to go after in free agency, so... with Ball, like, he's a really good shooter from long range, just not that great from anywhere else almost. Like, he's not that great mid-range. He could just be more physical, I think, offensively, too, just to, like, post people up, because he is 6'6". Like, he could probably do it against smaller guards, so we'll have to see if he can do that at the NBA level. Then on to Josh Jackson. Definitely a worse ball handler, but that's obvious. Like, he's a forward, not a guard, so that's usually going to be the case. Not a great shooter, but he is pretty solid at it. He's not gonna blow the roof out or whatever. He's gonna be good. He's just not that great. He's like, if you give him like a spot up shot, and that's gonna be a thing too. Like, if they want to play Josh Jackson at the 2, most likely he's gonna have to take a lot of spot up shots, and that's not something that he excels at. So that's gonna be an interesting fit.
Yeah.
If they go with him. Main thing for him in college, which is going to be interesting at the NBA level, he played the 4 a lot, which he's not going to be able to do at the NBA level unless he adds like another 30 pounds or whatever, because he's just not... He's tall enough for it, but he's not big enough for it, so I don't think that... He would never play the 4, I don't think, at the NBA level unless he would just come off the bench for Dario and just be a stretch 4 and would never go inside the paint, because I don't think they could afford to have him inside.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
He's like Lonzo is. He's a great driver. Probably better than Lonzo is, honestly, because of his size. Ridiculous defender. Like, he's probably the best defender in the draft, especially from the forward position. One of the main things that we've heard about him is how great his hustle is. Constantly diving after balls, he wins battles for it. Great on the offensive boards, pretty good defensive rebounder. He's a pretty solid passer too. There was a play where he deked a guy out, drove to the basket, and then made a crazy pass. I don't know how he didn't put the ball out of bounds, but he just slipped it past like 2 defenders, I think, and found the open guy in the corner for a 3. I don't think he's going to do that on like a consistent basis, but he's definitely capable of it, so that's good to see.
Yeah.
Like, he's just a good all-around player. He could be a little bit more physical with how tall he is, but maybe with adding on a few more pounds of muscle, he could develop into a more physical player. But I really like him, and I want the Sixers to draft him. But at the same time, I'm just not sure how he's going to fit in the lineup with... If, like, assuming Ben plays the 1 like Brett Brown wants him to.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be a tough fit, or initially, I think. But I think as the season kind of goes on, he'll be whatever. But I think the thing with the Sixers is that, Robert Covington could definitely be their 3 starter, but I'm not sure he will be. And if they draft Josh Jackson, I think he starts at the 3 immediately. I don't really think that they'll kind of keep him behind Robert Covington for any period of time. So in the case that Josh Jackson is our pick, pretty much expect Ben Simmons to be the point guard, Josh Jackson to be the 3, Dario at the 4, and then Embiid at the 5. And then in that case, it would either come down to a free agent signing, JJ Redick, maybe Jared Bayless, who he is back this season again, so possibly him. And then obviously, like I said before, if we do end up trading for Klay Thompson or a different shooter for that matter, but I'm not too sure if I would be for that or against it, just because of our current state of competitlikewise. We won't be ready to win next year, obviously. We'll more than likely we might make the playoffs. Probably, as the Eastern Conference isn't the most competitive thing, so could make probably the 6th seed, 5th seed even. And with the Raptors losing Kyle Lowry more likely than not, could even snatch the 4 seed if JoJo could stay healthy, if Ben could stay healthy, if Dario could improved greatly upon his rookie season. Plus, if Josh Jackson, Lonzo, whoever we draft could help a bunch. So really, with Lonzo or Josh Jackson, for me, it's a win-win.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
if in the case that Lonzo and Josh Jackson are both there at 3, I'm really still not decided. I'm just not. I'm not sure. Personally, I think I would take Josh Jackson, but I'm not sure really. I'm just mixed about it.
Yeah, and who knows if we just feel like Josh Jackson just because we don't think that Lonzo's going to be there, because that's kind of my thought process. Like, I don't think he's going to be there, but then who knows if he is there, and like feelings could change dramatically about him as a player and just how he would fit on the team.
Yeah, an absolutely best case scenario would be if the Celtics trade the 1 pick with a team that is Josh Jackson crazy, and he goes 1,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then the Lakers, for whatever reason, take Ball over Fultz, and then Fultz falls to us. But that is literally best case scenario. Probably no chance of happening. So
Probably not going to happen.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I highly doubt that would ever happen, but who knows? It's the NBA.
It is the NBA.
Where crazy happens.
Yeah.
It would definitely be a miracle if that would happen.
yeah, it would be.
Anticipate Jackson or Ball.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, so that was some Sixers stuff. Obviously, the draft is coming up soon. It's in about 2 weeks' time. So yeah, or 2.5-ish weeks. So yeah, so that we'll have some more prospects, or we'll draft prospects. Probably some De'Aaron Fox, Jason Tatum, guys like that to be talking about. But to move on to our final prospect report / analysis / draft thingamajigger, we'll talk about some Phillies. So, and speaking of Phillies, they have been playing a little bit better as of late. So that's very good too.
We won a series.
Yeah, we won a
series.
we won a series for the first time in like a month and almost a half. So that's great. But yeah, so the prospects for the Phillies have been, some of them have been performing well, some of them have not. I won't we're not going to run down the stats like we did last time, just more of a general update on them. So, obviously, got to talk about J.B. Crawford a little bit. He has, when we last did this back in May, I believe, end of April, early May, he was hitting 109. Now he's hitting 196. He has gotten up to, I believe, as high as 204. Last game, he didn't have a hit, so it dropped a little bit. But obviously, J.P. Crawford hitting a lot better. His approach looks a lot better. The last time we did this, his strikeout rate, I believe, was up in the low 20s, and his walk rate was in the low teens, which is not like him. But now his K rate has come down to just a bit over 17, and his walk rate has come up to 15.1, so that's a good thing. Jorge Alfaro, he's cooled down a little bit. He's hitting 273, 299 on base, 386 slug. Weird thing about him, he has a 385 BABIP, which is batting average on balls in play, with only a 273 average and a 299 on base. Pretty much what that tells you is his approach is not the greatest. So basically everything, whenever he hits the ball in play, it's going to be a hit more often, or not more often than not, but a lot of the time it's going to be a hit. A 385 BABIP is a very good mark for a BABIP. But then you look and you think, okay, well, that must mean his approach isn't the greatest if he's only getting on base 29.9% of the time and only hitting 273. And then you look at his K rate and you pretty much confirm that thought. His K rate is at 31% right now to only a 1.6% walk rate. So the approach for Jorge Alfaro has been a concern in the last few years, and it seems that he has not been able to fully fix that yet. So obviously we need to be patient there. with him. And to all the people saying, "Oh, you call him up now," no, just be patient with him.
No, just give him time. Yeah. Just give him time.
Give him time for sure. And then Mickey Moniak, or Moniak, I don't know. I always say Moniak, but I know it's Moniak, but I keep saying whatever.
It's okay.
Yeah, Mickey Moniak. He is at Lakewood. By the way, JP and Jorge, those are all Lehigh Valley. So, Mickey Moniak, he's in Lakewood. He has been he's been hitting pretty decently. He's heated up a little bit over the past week or two. His average did, I think, dip down into the either high 250s or low 260s, I think, at one point. But now he's brought it back up to about a 275. He also has a pretty good BABIP, 345, and his issue is kind of the same with Alfaro, just a little bit less drastic. He has a 21.6% K rate and a 6.6% walk rate. But something that's kind of annoying, I've seen a lot of people like, oh, Moniak is in AA already. He was the number 1 pick last year. That's the dumbest thing. Like, no, he's not even in Clearwater yet. Okay, he needs to get to Clearwater before he goes to Reading. So we've got to be patient with him there.
Phillies fans don't know how to be patient. They think this rebuild is like supposed to last like a year or something. Like, I think people are still way too spoiled from 2008 and everything. Like they think it's all supposed to just get back to normal in like 2 years. Nah. No. Like the late 90s should remind you that it takes a little while to get this back.
Yeah. But yeah, so another guy, Nick Williams, he has been on fire lately. He has 11 home runs this season, which is good for, I believe, well, on this list, 4th best, but in the system, he's probably top 10 for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, he's hitting 279 with a 315 on base, 350 BABIP, like the previous two guys, Alfaro and Moniak. Same issue. He has a 29.9% K rate as compared to only a 3.4% walk rate. Just approach issues, really, with Nick Williams. At this point, there's really not much he could do to fix it. It's just going to be who he is. Pretty much all we have to ask him to do at this point is just try not to strike out 30% of the time. Because if he strikes out 30% of the time, then there's just no way he can ever really be a productive major league hitter. So the walks, they're not gonna. When you're in AAA and you're at a 3.4% walk ratio or walk rate, you're not gonna see much improvement on it moving forward, just because you're already in AAA. But you never know. He is only, I think, 24 years old, maybe 23. So he's still young. He can fix it a little bit, but not much improvement's gonna happen there too much, really.
Yeah, it's just what he is, like you said, but it's assuming that he can just not strike out at that 29.9 or like a 30% rate, and he can walk just a little bit more. Like it's worth it for what he brings in terms of his other tools, and he's obviously has all the tools. It's just his approach has always been the main thing with him. So once he gets that on track, if he can just bring it down a little bit in terms of the K rate, obviously, then
yeah,
you have to imagine it's gonna be fine. So another guys that we have on here, Franklin Colon for Clearwater. He's made 9 starts for him. He's 3-2 with 3.02 ERA and a 1.34 WHIP. 22.7 K percentage and a 7% walk rate. So pretty good numbers for him so far. He's definitely one of the brightest prospects we have in the organization. So it's good to see him get off to a good start and improve from last year. So
yeah, he's definitely taking some strides. It's the numbers there. The 3-2, obviously, win-loss doesn't matter at all in the minors, but
yeah, it doesn't.
The 7% walk rate is pretty good. The 22.7% K percentage, also decent. The 1.34 WHIP is, it's not the greatest, but it's definitely good. Obviously, the 3.02 ERA. Yeah, the 3.02 ERA. He started the season a little bit shaky, and he's brought it down a lot. So that's definitely good. Like Kyle said, good sign that he's learning and whatnot. He's at Clearwater. So yeah, just to kind of take a break from some of the stats, just some general news about the prospects. So Sixto Sanchez, who began the year with Lakewood, he was assigned to Williamsport on the 11th of May, and Williamsport obviously is the short season single A affiliate of the Phillies. So he will begin his season on the 19th of June. So just about 2 weeks from now, he will be with Williamsport. Also, another pitcher, Kevin Gowdy, our second rounder from last year. He will either begin the season with. He's currently in extended spring training, for those wondering. He'll begin the season either with GCL, with the GCL Phils, where he played last season, or with Williamsport. Archimedes Gamboa, who is, he's in the range of about, on most people's boards, about 15 to 20 for our prospect rankings. He was activated from the disabled list about a week and a half ago, so that's always good to see, obviously. Jalen Ortiz, he, like Gowdy, will begin with either GCL or Williamsport. Same with Cole Staub. Alnieri Garcia, he'll be coming off the restricted list, I believe, relatively soon. Obviously, he was docked for the PED suspension. Another guy, Sir Anthony Dominguez, who has taken strides beyond belief this season. He did have a bit of a shoulder injury, or not injury, but a bit of a shoulder scare, I guess if you want to call it, but did get an MRI on it, came back clean, so that's good. He, this season, has a 2.02 ERA, 101 WHIP. He's 3-0 through 6 starts. He has 7 appearances, 1 came out of the bullpen. Striking out 32.4% of batters he faces, so that's pretty good.
Solid.
Yeah.
Pretty solid.
Yeah.
He's ridiculous.
And then also a guy who was at a different level last time we did this, Tom Eshelman. He was just lighting up Reading, so they promoted him to Lehigh Valley, where somehow he's done better than he did in Double-A. So in Double-A, he was 3-0 with a 3.1 ERA through 29 innings and 5 starts. And in Triple-A, he is 3-0 through 5 starts. He's pitched about 10 innings more than he did in Double-A through the same amount of appearances. And he also has a 1.4 ERA with a .8 WHIP. His K percentage is barely lower. It's 17 in AAA. It was at 19.5 at AA. And he's reduced his walk rate. So Tom Eshelman, he could end up being a guy that to look out for end of the year, maybe make a few starts for the Phillies, but really long term, nothing to kind of go crazy about because he's back end starter at best. So and like we mentioned last week, I believe we mentioned this last week, but second base prospect Jesmo Valentin, he underwent season-ending shoulder surgery on the 26th of May. So his season's done with. Promote Scott Kingery. Anyway, who said that? I'm not sure. Victor Arano, who injured himself during spring training with the Phils. He was activated just a few days ago, just about 5 days ago on the 30th. He's only made 2 appearances. He's with Reading right now, by the way. He's made 2 appearances, 2 1/3 innings, 1 hit, 1 strikeout, no runs, no walks. So hopefully he'll more likely than not, he will be at some point this season with the big club. I don't see them waiting around much longer to promote him to Lehigh Valley. I think they're just going to try to get his feet wet in Double-A a little bit, get him back in the swing of things, and then promote him. But Jake Thompson, who for whatever reason when they bumped him up to the major league to the major league bullpen, that kind of screwed him because he was on a really good role with AAA, and then they promoted him and then sent him back down. And ever since he's been So yeah, I'm not too sure why they did that with him, but
yeah, that made no sense. And like you said, especially when he was on a good streak too, like there was no reason to bring him up, especially when you had other guys who could do exactly what he was brought up to do for 3 games. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly what Klentak and the front office was thinking there.
Yeah,
but,
like he was, because he had started the year pretty shaky with Lehigh Valley, but then he started to figure it out. He started to get things rolling. He was pretty much back to 2016 AAA Jake Thompson, and then they called him up, and then he pitched in 3 games. He had a 9 ERA, a 2 WHIP, walked way more than he struck out, and then sent him back down, and now he's back to beginning of the 2017 season, Jake Thompson, over his last few starts. So hopefully he can get himself fixed up. It's the Bob McClure effect, man, I'm telling you. But anyway.
Yeah, he's not a good pitching
Yeah,
coach. He really isn't. It's become
I
obvious.
was a few weeks back when the bullpen was atrocious and the starting pitching was not the hottest, and it's still not the best. The starting pitching, Hellickson was a little bit shaky today. Eichhoff. Speaking of starting pitching real quick, Ben Lively, great debut with the Phillies yesterday. 7 innings, 1 run. He did not strike out a single hitter and walked 3. So a bit of an interesting debut for Ben Lively, but yeah, I was
only gave up a run.
Yeah,
in 7
I was kind
innings.
of on the
amazing.
I was kind of on the wait out McClure and see how it's gonna go, but man, he is really starting to get on everybody's nerves at this point.
All it took was Vinny calling him out, and then now we see what's happened.
Yeah, really. When Velasquez said that he was clueless and whatnot, and yeah, that just kind of set it off.
Yeah, and now everyone's against him. But so otherwise, like pretty much most of the things have stayed the same. Scott Kingery is tearing it up. 17 home runs, just 1 behind Aaron Judge for the the lead in all of baseball,
including every level. Yeah.
And you can attribute some of that to Redding, but
if you look at
him being
but if you look at his home and away splits, it's insane. Like you would think like, oh, he's at Redding, it's whatever. He should be hitting that many home runs. But if you look at his home and away splits, it's not that at all. Like he's actually been like very good everywhere.
Which is what I think we all kind of expected. Like you guys know how big of fans we are of Kingery, and I pretty sure we didn't think he would be this good, but he's exceeded everyone's expectations, and he's just been. It's not gonna be long until he gets up to AAA.
Yeah, definitely not.
Like it's as simple as that. He'll be up there within a few weeks.
Yeah, without a doubt, especially with Valentin's injury, plus him knocking the cover off the ball, plus some injuries like Zach Eflin going to the DL, with Ben Lively obviously getting called up, with Nick Pivetta getting called up to start Monday, so the 5th against Atlanta. So there's going to be some guys that are going to get promoted just because of there's just going to be spots, and I think Kingery's going to be Kingery won't get promoted just for the sake of promoting for a few days to fill a spot and then being sent back. When he's promoted to AAA, he's going to stay there for the rest of the season.
Yeah,
and like Kyle said, it's going to be soon. But to go back to the the home away splits, he actually has hit better away than he has at home. He's hitting .321 away with a .400 on base, but he does have 1 extra home run at home than he does away. He has 9 at home, 18 away. He has more doubles away than he has at home. He has 7 doubles away, 5 at home, 2 triples, 4 triples total, 2 home, 2 away. So really, it's just Scott Kingery. Like, it's not Redding's ballpark. Obviously, the ballpark helps a little bit, but he's still hitting 8 home runs away. He has still hit 8 home runs away from Redding. So, he's pretty much.
It's the fact that he's really good.
Pretty much.
He's really.
That's basically the summary of it. But yeah, so then.
Yeah, so
Rhys
like
Hoskins.
Rhys Hoskins is also doing freaking amazing. Dylan Cousins is
starting to come
like.
along.
I don't even. Yeah, like. He's such an interesting prospect. He'll hit all these home runs, but then you look at his average and everything, and you're like, oh. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's not what exactly.
Yeah, his issue is pretty much the same as Alfaro, Moniak, and Williams. He has a 299 BIP, but only a 237 average and a 303 on base. And then you look at his K rate, and he's striking out 34.1% of the time, and then you say, oh, that's why. But he did injure him. I think he did get injured just a few days ago. He hit in last night's game. I'm not too sure if he's in. I could actually just look right now to see if he's in tonight's game. But I think it was some kind of leg injury because he got pinch hit for. Pinch ran for. Yeah, he's not in the lineup tonight against Louisville. But so that's a bad sign, especially with Roman Quinn, who we didn't mention yet. But Roman Quinn, he's also not played in about a week. So Cousins and Quinn both seeming to be injured. Not too good of a sign there. But like I did say before, Nick Pivetta, he did get called back up. He's going to be starting Monday, so tonight, if you're listening to this, against Atlanta. Yeah, and when his AAA stats are insane. So I won't even read them, but he's 5-0 in 5 starts, 1.14 WHIP, or 1.14 ERA, 0.84 WHIP, like it's crazy. But other than that, really, one of the surprising guys that I didn't expect to be doing as well this season as he's doing, Carlos Tocci at Reading, AA. A lot of people kind of forgot about him because of all of our other highly touted outfield prospects, but Tocci's hitting 295 with a 366 on base and a 363 slug with Reading. His approach at the beginning of the season, the point I'm trying to get at here is the fact that he's hitting 295 with a 366 on base is pretty amazing because he is, not a guy you'd expect to swing and miss as much as he was at the beginning of the season. And he's really a guy that you'd expect to be taking a lot of walks. But at the beginning of the season, his K rate was insane. It was like a 26% or something like that. And his walk rate was at like a 2 or 3%. But since he's kind of got it, he's got it back. He's at a 15% K rate, 7% walk rate. So really, the fact that he's hitting 295 is pretty good. And another guy, Andrew Pullen, who I expect if either Cousins or Quinn go on the DL, I expect Pullen to probably be the guy who gets called up to AAA because they did call up Giandato Trump to AAA, and his debut was good. But Andrew Pullen, he's hitting 325, almost a 400 on base. He has 12 home runs, and a 9% walk rate to a 14.9% K rate. So really, it's a good option to have him. So him and Kingery will probably be making their way to AAA at around the same time. So
yeah, most likely, and I don't know if Pullen will be there for good like Kingery would be, but he definitely has proved that I think he's too good for Reading almost at this point, and that he could do pretty well in AAA, and that he's better than I think what a lot of people are giving him credit for. Only real reason that he is in AA right now is because he's blocked pretty much everywhere. Because we have there's such a log jam at AAA that it's just unfair.
We have Quinn, Cousins, Williams, plus Cam Perkins is there, and Pullen can't play the infield, so
he's just kind of
stuck in AA, and like Kyle said, if it were to happen where Pullen was called up because of an injury, and the Phillies could not move Howie Kendrick or Michael Saunders, and Roman Quinn or Cousins needed to go back to AAA, Pullen would more than likely be the odd guy out, be sent back down to AA. I guess they could actually. I don't even think they'd do that. They'd probably end up just like moving Pedro Florimon or somebody like that, Hector Gomez maybe, if he's still there at that point. They probably just end up releasing one of those guys to keep Pullen there to DH him or something. So.
Yeah, because I don't think that they would value Florimon or one of those guys over Poulin just because he's younger, obviously, and he's the actual prospect.
Yeah, pretty much. So.
Wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, and another guy.
Do that, but...
just real quick, Jojo Romero. He's having a very good season with Lakewood, as are most of the Lakewood starters.
Yeah.
He had another very good inning, or very good outing today. Scoreless, I believe, maybe one run. Basically, just kind of read the Lakewood guys. Bailey Falter, 3.88 ERA. Jojo Romero, 2.32 ERA. Nick Fonte, 2.1 ERA. Ranger Suarez, 1.95 ERA. So you could probably tell how Lakewood's season is going based off that. But then again, they aren't that much over 500.
And they had 602,
but
so.
they can't. But right now they really can't hit all that well. Aside from Moniak and a few other guys, because Daniel Brito, he has fallen off a good amount. But really, it's Lakewood and Clearwater's pitching staffs are insane. So.
Yeah, definitely. And Lakewood had 6-0 at one point, so. Mm-hmm. And that, imagine how good they would be if 6-0 was still there. That would be ridiculous.
Yeah, so that pretty much wraps it up for the prospects of the Phillies. Now the MLB draft is pretty soon. I'm pretty sure it's in like a week and a half. And Cormican at the Good Fight, he has pretty much put up a draft profile of everybody 1 to 10 or so. That the Phillies could probably take, plus some second round options. So if you would like to just read the full pieces and watch the videos yourself, you can just head on over to the Good Fight, which is the Phillies SB Nation blog, if you didn't know, and just search up.
I'll link the articles. I'll link some of the main ones.
So if you'd like to just kind of read it yourself, watch the video yourself, you can go on over there. But just to kind of highlight, I won't talk about them all, but Hunter Green, he is a shortstop / right-handed pitcher. This draft is really weird because of how many two-way guys there are. Like, there have been two-way guys in the past, Madison Bumgarner. That's really the only one that kind of pops off the top of my head. But Hunter Green and there's all these guys. I think Tanner Houck is one too. Kyle Wright maybe. Brendan McKay. Like a bunch of guys pretty much are two-way players that are going to go at the top of the draft. Green and McKay are, I believe, kind of not consensus 1-2, but most likely 1-2. The order isn't really set in stone at this point, but as more likely it won't be until they're actually picked. But Hunter Green and Brendan McKay go pretty much to not get them. The Phillies do pick 8th, by the way, if you're wondering. So pretty much those two guys don't expect on them. A guy that I'm kind of hoping they could get if he falls is J.J. Swartz, who is a catcher. So he's pretty much getting a ton of comparisons to Kyle Schwarber. Pretty much a guy who could hit the hell out of the ball, but can't feel that or can't stick at catcher because of lack of agility, because he's a bigger guy. So, like I said, the bat on J.J. Swartz is insane. If you just watch video of him, you could just tell. You don't really see many guys who have a good a swing as he does at such a young age. which is it's really impressive. So really, he'll kind of be a guy who will be in the majors relatively soon. The only problem is he does sit at catcher currently. He'll more than likely be moved to the outfield, and in his case, best case scenario for him would be drafted by an AL team, because then they have the DH card to fall back on. So he's a guy that I kind of am hoping they could get. Another guy, Jaron Kendall, who's an outfielder. He's probably the most athletic player in this draft by a good bit. But there's a pretty solid chance that he's going to be gone by 8 because he's, like I said, incredibly athletic. He's insanely fast. He's pretty much getting comparisons to he's pretty much drawing times and clocks to first base, like speeds, pretty much like Billy Hamilton. Like he's running in the 3-second ranges.
Jesus.
And so he's pretty much crazy. But he's about as fast, if not faster, than he's about as fast, if not a bit faster than Roman Quinn. So if you want to just kind of draw a comparison there, but his defense, very good. Obviously, he could cover a ton of ground. His bat isn't the greatest, as you could probably think, because he isn't the biggest guy, because obviously you could tell he's insanely quick. But it's kind of like he's kind of like a guy who, if he could develop a solid swing and better his approach, I guess. His approach is good, but as a hitter, it's not the greatest. Or as a major league hitter and professional hitter, it's not the greatest. So if he could do those, he can become a pretty good hitter, and getting him at 8 could end up being like a steal. So,
it sounds like with his speed, like if you can get a guy who's faster than Roman Quinn or like a Billy Hamilton, that's crazy.
So I'm kind of pulling for him to drop. Those are kind of the 2 guys that I'm hoping. Also a guy that I'm kind of rooting for is Kyle Wright, who is out of Vanderbilt. He is 21. He's from Vanderbilt. He's 6'4", 220. He's a righty, a starter. There's a lot of comparisons. The weird thing about this draft is a lot of the guys at the top, the starters at least, the pitchers, a lot of them are getting drawing comparisons to Aaron Nola, and how not only with like the pitch thing, when I say the pitch thing, like like the command, the pitch kind of arsenal, but how quick they will be able to kind of move through the draft, because most of the pitchers at the top here are college guys, like Nola was. So they could very well be in the majors by 2019, maybe even late 2018.
That would definitely be good.
So, Kyle Wright, Alex Fado out of Florida, J.B. Bukowskis, I believe is how you pronounce it. He's out of UNC. Any of these guys are pretty much guys who, if they fell, I would be ecstatic. Because they all have, mid-rotation possibilities. Some of them have ace potential, but it's obviously it's they're college guys, so it's always a kind of a coin flip.
MLB draft is such a crapshoot in so many scenarios.
Yeah.
So,
but really, it's a right now, the Phillies, in the situation that they're currently in with their rebuild, I think a college guy suits them best because of their timeline. Because if you figure a guy like Bukowskis, or a guy like McKay, or a guy like Fado, they could be ready within 2 years' time. And even if we were to eventually use them as trade pieces, it would be pretty much perfectly timed to when they will be major league ready, and when we'll be contention ready. So it's really a good thing. And then the second round option, I'll kind of just give you the less likely for, well, yeah, pretty much second round guys. There's one in particular that I would like more than some others. So I'll just kind of run through them. Tristan Beck, who's out of Stanford. Alex Lang, who's out of LSU. Hans Kraus, great name by the way. He's a high schooler out of Dana Hills High School in California. So those are kind of our second round kind of bargains, I guess. Those are guys who have mid to late first round potential. Especially Tristan Beck. He was a guy that was pretty much like a lock for high up, but he's kind of pitched himself out of the high first to early mid first round. So if we can get him in the second round, that would be a good thing. So he's probably the guy that I would like. But then also there are some other round 2 options who we're more likely to get. So there's teammates, Hagen Danner and Nick Prado, who, fun fact, they won the Little League World Series back in 2011 with Huntington Beach on that Huntington Beach, California team. They won the World Series as teammates there, and then they're teammates through high school. But those two guys, Danner is a pitcher / catcher, and Prado is a pitcher / first baseman. Personally, out of the two, I'd probably prefer Prado because he's a lefty, and I would just kind of prefer lefties to righties at this point because of the lack of lefty kind of depth at most positions in our system. So
exactly. Yeah, we just don't. There's so many right-handed pitchers in the organization, and just right-handed in general. Yeah. So that would definitely be a good thing to have.
Yeah, for sure. And that's pretty much, those are the guys that I would kind of hope to get. Obviously, there's more. If you kind of, like I said, go read what Cormican has written because it's some good stuff. Do your own research. Obviously, I'm not telling you that these guys are better than others, but that's just kind of what I believe. So, but yeah, go do your own research. Go watch your own film. I highly encourage it. It's definitely good to be doing at this point in time, given the fact that these guys that we will be drafting will more than likely be, whether or not they're on the teams that end up competing or if they are trade pieces that get guys that will be on the thing. These guys pretty much in this draft will play bigger roles than you would expect moving forward for the Phillies. So yeah, definitely go and scout these guys for yourself. But that'll pretty much wrap it up for the prospects edition of the prospect episode for the Drive podcast for me and Kyle. So all that's really left to do is the hot take. So so to kind of follow up Kyle's from last week, it's gonna be a non-sports take this week. So obviously I'm gonna talk about probably the most talked about story of the past week, which has been the Kathy Griffin thing.
Oh, yeah. That little chestnut.
That thing. So, if you haven't seen it, where are you? Do you not use the okay? Anyway, you've seen it. Basically, is what I'm trying to get at. It was the Kathy Griffin, who is a comedian, and she also she hosted. She doesn't name more. She hosted CNN's New Year's coverage, and like I said, she was a comedian. She did a photo shoot with, was it TMZ or was it, I forget who it was, but basically she held up it is a basically decapitated head of Donald Trump. So, and obviously the backlash there was a lot, but then a lot of people, not a lot, but a few people came to her defense And I kind of looked at it like this, right? So I don't, and obviously she's not a fan of Trump, for one. But
That's
yeah.
obvious.
So this is kind of how I looked at it, right? So I kind of see it as if she wants to come out and trash Trump and hate for what he stands for, I'm fine with that. It's whatever. You have the right to think that way, right? It's every American's right to have their own opinions. But in the case that this happened with a decapitated head of our president, you love him or hate him, it's whatever. But it shows some decency, I guess, because it's like you to show a like we as Americans are censored by the news organizations from a lot of bad things that go on around the world. Like we never see decapitated heads in the mainstream media because obviously ISIS they post pictures and videos of American journalists and journalists from everywhere just being decapitated on photo or video. So we're really censored from this. But for a CNN kind of friend, I guess if you want to call it, colleague, it's kind of a dumb thing to do, and I just really like if you're gonna do something to trash Trump, do it. Like I don't do it. I don't care. Just don't hold up a decapitated or a seemingly decapitated head of him.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like I get that, like, again, like you said, she cannot like Trump, that's fine. But you went too far. And like she said that, like, oh, well, comedians, we go too far, like, all the time. And it's like, yeah, that, like, duh, that's what a comedian does. You push the line every time you make a joke. But that doesn't make it right what she did. Like, that doesn't give you an excuse to be like, oh, well, it's fine. Like, it was just classless, it's tasteless, and regardless of your opinion on him, whether you like him, whether you hate him, like, and that's the thing too, and that's a good thing what I saw, like, even people who didn't like him, who don't like him, were just like, yeah, that's really stupid. Like, why would you do that? Much. So and it was good to see people from both sides just
and like you're saying, when you push the line with things, you still have respect for things that happen, and pretty much what she kind of did by saying that, by doing this, was like, okay, I don't respect. Not only do I not respect the Trump, I don't respect the office of the president. Which, like I said, like or hate Trump, you still have to respect the office, and she didn't really. So,
or at the very least, just like show decent.
Yeah.
Like just decent human,
just
like
have some decency.
being qualities.
Yeah, like just have human decency. And another thing that she said was, she pretty much said, "Oh, he broke me because, Trump obviously made comments about the picture, saying whatever about Kathy Griffin, but she said, "Oh, he broke me." Well, in a sense, he aided in. I wouldn't say aided in getting her fired.
He didn't help her, but he did.
Yeah, he didn't break her. It wasn't. He wasn't the one that.
Everyone hated
a decapitated,
Like, it wasn't.
Or a photo of her with a decapitated head. So. Yeah.
It wasn't just him. Like, it was public outrage, and then Trump commented on it. Like, it wasn't. There was no. Yeah, like, you can't say, like, free speech or something. Like, it's not. Like, the government shut me down. Like, no, the human public was just like, yeah, you're really shitty for what you did.
Yeah, pretty much.
It wasn't like, yeah, that's. I get what she's trying to say, but that's not a viable excuse, or like a response to it. Like, you, and besides, you did it. Like, you can't. Like, you're the reason that you got fired from all your positions and everything, and. Like, you made this post, and you thought that it was fine, when it obviously, to any normal human being, wasn't.
Yeah, pretty much, and it's... obviously, you don't want to see somebody's career derailed completely by something, but in the case of this, it's... Yeah, but in the case of this, it's kind of like, well, you got yourself into it, so there's really nothing that you could sympathize her for, I guess.
It's like the tweet that the reporter made about the Indy 500
Yeah.
and the Japanese driver winning.
Pretty much.
Like, I don't want in normal circumstances, I don't want someone's career to be ruined because of something like that, but in this case, I don't necessarily hate it. Like, I'm a little bit more accepting of someone losing their credibility and their career because of what they did.
Yeah, pretty much. So that'll pretty much wrap up this episode, the 18th. Like I said before, the 18th episode of the Drive Podcast. Kyle, as long as you're done talking about what you're talking about, I'm done talking about what I'm talking about. So
I think we're
All right.
good. Yep.
yeah. So as always, thank you for listening. We will be back again next week, like it or not. We'll be back. So so for Kyle,
Whether you want us or not.
yeah,
we're
pretty
back.
much. So yeah, so as always, for Kyle, I'm Jared. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
They do. Fly ball left field. Tagging from third is Suarez. Goodell comes running in. He's under it. Makes the catch. Here's the throw to the plate. It's in the air. He is out! Cameron Rupp hangs on! Oh, man, what a play! Cameron Rupp hangs on.
Wow.
Everybody to their feet. What a play by Cameron Rupp. The throw took him into the baseline. He grabs it, hangs on, takes the contact, and the ball game is over.